Hey everyone, so today I will be going over our lesson plan for a 12th grade government class on how a bill becomes a law, and this will be in line with the Waiting to Inhale lesson plan on tobacco regulations and laws. I'm going to kind of go skip through the central focus of unit and the standards since they're pretty self-explanatory, and move on to the instructional learning objectives. So first, after this lesson, students will be able to explain how laws are passed at a national and state level. Students will also be able to describe current advertising and age regulations governing the tobacco industry. And finally, students will be able to connect current laws and regulations to real-life examples. And these objectives will be assessed through an informal class discussion, both during and after the lecture, as well as a formal assessment where students will complete and turn in the tobacco regulations research graphic organizer, and this will be their exit ticket. For our language function, we chose explain because students, again, will be explaining how laws are passed at the national and state levels, and they'll also, while they're describing the current advertising and age regulations, they will be able to explain what those laws are as well. So for additional language demands, we have our vocabulary list, bill, veto, filibuster, standing committee, and subcommittee. And for our discourse, we wrote pair share, group discussion, and class discussion. Here are our resources and materials. We have a graphic organizer. We're going to do a skeleton notes that goes along with our PowerPoint lecture, and then some other things listed here. So student prior knowledge. Students should already know what the three branches of government are, and they should have some understanding of what each branch's roles and responsibilities are from previous lectures and classes. Students should also have some prior knowledge of current tobacco regulations, mostly just from personal observations of what they've seen around in their life. You see signs for minimum age of purchasing tobacco and things like that all the time. So that's kind of what we're referring to here. All right, moving on to instructional strategies. Our transition from previous activity will be to ask them what the three branches of the government are, and then what are their roles and responsibilities. So hopefully one of the students answered that one of the key responsibility of the legislative branch is to make laws. And once someone answers that, we will be moving on to the hook and purpose, where we'll introduce that we're going to be talking about tobacco regulations today. So then we can kind of discuss, we'll take about 5 minutes to discuss what they have seen just in their life about tobacco regulations. This may be a sign about, again, like the minimum age of purchase at a supermarket or convenience store. And then also maybe ask them to share some examples of tobacco regulations that they might be familiar with from the media or popular culture. Moving on to focused instruction, so we'll start off the modeling part of the instruction with the iconic Schoolhouse Rock video, How a Bill Becomes a Law, one of my favorite videos of all time. And then we will move on to the PowerPoint presentation of how a bill becomes a law. This should take about 10 to 15 minutes, but notice how there is a check for understanding embedded within the lecture. Of course, Schmoker talks about how important these checks for understanding are to make sure that all the students are on the same page before moving on to the next. But it also does kind of break up the monotony of lecturing for 15 minutes straight and giving the students an opportunity to kind of digest the information that they have learned, discuss and talk about it with each other before moving on to the next thing. For scaffolding, we set that the teacher will provide each student with skeleton notes that have the students follow along by filling in the missing gaps, and all the missing gap answers are directly translated to the PowerPoint. And also the checks for understanding throughout the lecture is a scaffolding in itself because we're getting the struggling students caught up on the information even if they didn't get it the first time. And then for our guided instruction and practice, we're going to pass out the tobacco regulations worksheet, which looks like this, like so. Let's see here. Okay, so we'll explain to the students that the types of laws we'll be looking into today are tobacco regulations in the United States. And we'll look through some laws together through this website, and we'll examine the website together as a class, briefly filling in the sales to minors, marketing and advertising, trade and taxation, and smoking bans that the website lists through the Tobacco Control Act links, and they are directly on the website. And so the teacher will be working with the students and putting them in like the right category on the worksheet or the graphic organizer. And for differentiating for this, we set that as the teacher is filling in the worksheet with the class, the teacher's model will remain projected in the front of the class as a visual representation in case anybody needs to refer back to it. And finally, for the independent practice, the students will move their desks into pairs, and then the class will be divided into two sides. One side will be focusing on just the sales and the use of tobacco in California, and then they have to examine one other state of their choosing. And then the other side of the class will explore the regulations on advertising of tobacco products. So there are some online resources that they could take a look at, and then they'll work on this for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then they're going to find a partner from the other side of the classroom and share their findings. So now they're filling out the rest of the worksheet with their new partners. Okay, so finally for our closure, we'll have a class discussion on the findings of the research before turning in the worksheet. So on the whiteboard, the teacher will write sales to minors, smoking bans, and then ask the students what the California state laws for sales to minors are, and then ask them to compare other state laws that they might have found interesting when they researched it. So we'll make a little T-chart and do a comparison of California's laws versus other states' laws. And then we'll also ask the students about regulations on marketing and advertising, and then we will make a little brainstorming spiderweb chart as a visual aid of what the students learned. And then at the end of class, they'll turn in the graphic organizer as an exit slip. And that's it.